for entertainment purposes only. And if you want true legal advice, contact your own lawyer.
Let's just roll right into this that we keep trying to talk about. Okay, so what happens is when singers come in and they have, okay, I'm a brand new singer and I want to show you my great songs, they sign up with a record company, right?
Yep.
And as they sign up with a record company, the one that basically holds the right to what's called the catalog or those songs, usually when they're like a nobody and they start out, is the record company, right? So as Taylor Swift first started out, she did her first 6 main albums to this thing called a company called Big Machine Label Group. And Big Machine Label Group owns and acquires her catalog and owns the catalog of her first 6 albums, which, by the way, were very, very successful. Now, so what happens is this individual by the name of, and I didn't hear about this guy until this guy comes in and he has got a couple of bucks and his name's Scooter Braun and he buys the label or the company for $300 million and takes the rights of her first 6 albums. Now there's this little thing going on, this little tiff. They're kind of bumping heads about, well, Taylor's argument is, you never really put me on notice. I wanted to, I could have bought those. Right? Is generally what she's saying. And then that's the evidence that's coming out. No, you were given notice. And for some reason, I didn't know this, but her father owns part of Big Machine Label Group or owns stock in it. Mm-hmm. And he knew about it. Her dad knew about it. And so that's the big issue. Is there going to be lawsuits? This is one of the rare times we talk about something, lawsuits haven't been filed, but this is something that occurs all the time. In fact, it occurred in Prince, Jay-Z, and Janet Jackson. Someone else owned them, and they eventually got them back, but they own the actual their work.
Right. Here, when she was 15 years old, her dad helped negotiate the contract. He eventually buys stock in the underlying company that owns her catalog, and however, I think her dad has a really good argument that even if he would have known by the stockholders meeting or shareholders meeting that this was going to be sold to another company for $300,000. $300 million, sorry. That's right. It was a lot more than that. And but he couldn't say anything because it could be almost insider trading in a way. Maybe not. It may not be publicly traded company, but you certainly as a shareholder, you're not going to go release this kind of information out because it could impact the cost or the value of your shares.
There's also an issue regarding the master tapes. Because to a recordist, to an artist, that is to say, the master tapes are the real value. Anytime you get a CD or a download, it's a duplicate off of a master mix, then mixed down, and so it's a duplicate of a duplicate at very best. The master tapes have historical value. Tapes that didn't go. Dialogue. People say, well, let's try that and bring that up a little bit. Other things like that. So artists want to keep their master tapes because, A, they have historical value, and B, they can remix them and re-release them and make some money.
Well, one of the things to point out here, it was a little different than buying the catalog. Now, Michael Jackson, for example, bought the Beatles catalog.
Right.
And he bought it for like $47, $48 million back in the day. He bought the catalog. What happened here is that Braun came in, didn't buy the catalog by itself. He bought Big Machine Label Group. He bought the company, of which the catalog was an asset.
Right.
And so that is part of the issue here about whether or not Taylor Swift would have, had she known about it, purchased the catalog by itself. I don't know, for example, that Taylor Swift's individual catalog is worth $300 million. Like if the Beatles catalog was only worth $47 million, and I realize that was 20 some odd years ago, but I don't know that the catalog itself was worth $300 million. The company was, and everything that goes with it. The catalog wasn't for sale individually. Taylor Swift's dad said he chose not to attend the meeting because he didn't want to hear a bunch of people bashing his daughter. But you raise a good point, whether or not he could have done anything about it. And had he told Taylor, he would have violated a confidentiality agreement.
Yeah, exactly. And the other part that for me, that just bothers me, there's 6 albums, you guys, 6 albums. Why didn't she renegotiate? Why did she keep producing albums and giving the masters to this company. Why didn't she renegotiate? She certainly had the power to.
It was part of the way to get her tapes back. I'll tell you what, that was part of the deal. She had to produce new content to get her old content.
Well, we're going to talk about a few other things when we come back. I'm going to note something else that's you haven't thought about. We'll be right back.
This is Radio Law Talk. And now, back to the show.
We're talking about Taylor Swift's first 6, I believe, catalogs and the individual that bought them by buying the actual company that owned them, Big Machine Label. The one thing that's interesting to note, though, that all kinds of people have brought opinions up about this and whether or not there's lawsuits, et cetera, et cetera. But there is the important thing to know that they can't necessarily take all these albums, do everything with them. For example, this individual that
Scooter Braun,
and not just Scooter Braun, but Big Machine Label Group can't go out and sell a lot of these songs to, say, a movie theater or a movie company to go ahead and use them unless she agrees to it. But it's vice versa. She can't do it either without his agreement.
So if there was an agreement between Taylor Swift and we'll just call it Big Machine, BMLG, for the usage of these songs before the sale to Braun, well, that agreement is still in place. Braun bought the company and all of the catalog and all of the agreements that go along with it. I'm going to play the devil's advocate. I'm going to jump on the side of the record company because a lot of people look at this and, boy, when this came out, there were people that just, oh, my gosh, look how much money they're making and how dare Taylor Swift, because of her success, have all of this taken from her. And it kind of paints the record labels in a bit of a bad light as far as that because – and I admit that if it was solely focused on this one artist, I get that. But I think you have to look at the fact here of how many artists or groups does Big Machine Label Group or any other record company sign and promote and work and spend hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars working with that don't pan out, where they don't recoup their investment. That is common in the entertainment industry. In Hollywood, the first part of the year is what's called pilot season, where all of the actors want to be down there. They're all auditioning for these pilot shows that are going to be pitched to networks. And the networks are footing the bill for the production of 100, 150 shows, of which maybe 5 or 6 get picked up for primetime television. The rest, we spend a lot of money for this and it goes away. And there's got to be a way for these companies to be able to stay in business that allows them to take risks on acts that don't pan out so that they can make their money back on the ones that do.
So when you get to Hollywood or you get to the music business, you come in as a wannabe, and if you're hit, you go out as a commodity. Taylor Swift came in as a wannabe. That's why they made the deal they made. Let's do this. I'm a wannabe. And now she's a commodity. And she's saying, look, I need to be treated like a commodity here. Now, there are those who say that what she's doing is a negotiation ploy because she'll get a cut of this sale, but she's negotiated to try to get a better deal. But here's the thing that bothers me the most about this. In order for her to get back rights over her catalog, her master tapes, she has to produce a new album to get rights to one of her old ones. 2 for 1, right? She can't buy them. She has to make more money for the company by producing yet another album to get the money back from the first album.
But she left this company, though.
She did.
But I'm saying that's the only way she can get it back. So how does she do that? She can't. That's the point.
But that's true. Her deal with Big Machine Label Group was that for every album she put out after the 5th or 6th one, she would get one of those albums back.
You mean the masters from those albums? Is that what you're talking
masters
about?
Masters and also catalog, the music catalog rights.
Okay.
This is a conclusive deal, a wrapped-up deal.
But she has since signed with she's with Universal Music Group now, so arguably that doesn't come into play. Now, the question here is, why make it for 4, 5, 6 albums? I'll just give you an example. This is the example I gave to you guys at the break. Van Halen, 1978 debut album. I mean, off the charts. It was great. They toured. Well, the music company, Warner Brothers in this case, has very good accountants, and they keep track of every expense, and they're not footing the bill for that. They put it back on the artist. So that limo ride is being paid for by Van Halen. And after their first tour for their first album, they came home and they were $1.5 million in debt. That's $1.5 million of $1978. Wow. And they had to get back in the studio and release a second album, for which they toured and then got in more debt. They didn't start breaking even with everything that has to happen until what? About the fourth or fifth album. And that's common in the industry, which is why they make these deals, because that is about how long, if you're a big act and you tour and you do all of that, that's about how long it takes to where you start really getting out of the red and into the black on the balance sheet, and they make their money that way.
Wow. That's interesting how that works.
Go to the website, radiolawtalk.com. That's radiolawtalk.com.